All right, well, I should probably get started, right? I don't know. I know some other sessions kind of run long, and the technical ones are. This isn't as technical. I've done more technical ones, but this one is, there's guys like Keith sitting here, and I just, you let Keith do those when you have this crowd. So, bridging the old and the new. What this is meant to do. Well, who we are, I guess, and who I am. MS Consulting. I've went to school for computer science, bachelor's, master's, all that other stuff, and got involved in, did a little work programming and things like that. But then, of course, got involved in OpenVMS system admin. Now, I'm not as old as some people here. Actually, I don't mean it that way. Yeah. My very first OpenVMS was on 3.7, I think. So, and it was the coolest thing when you upgraded to 4 because you had command line recall. Yeah, that was really cool stuff. But over the years, I worked for a boss that always used to say, it's like, we ought to start doing a company or start a company that just does system admin for people. I mean, no one ever heard of that at the time. So in 1996, he said, all right, let's go do it. And we did it. And we basically are a company that does system admin specifically for really all the enterprise operating systems. So DEC, HPUX, Solaris, SunOS, AX, so forth. We even have some practices in some of those other things. I could let you read what's up there. We have some recent experience with another partner that does mainframe migrations, so moving big iron onto other stuff and into the cloud, not Java. Nothing to do with anything we're talking about here. But given our legacy experience with OpenVMS, it tends to put us in big companies. And so we've seen hundreds of these environments in close to the last 30 years. So anyway, that's kind of my background and my company's background. The purpose of this is to take some of that experience and say, now, how can we turn this into addressing some of those complex environments we see? And by complex environments, I mean multi-vendor, old technology, new technology, things like that, because that's what most of our companies, I think, have. We're not lucky enough to go in and say, all right, we all have one technology that we have to deal with. We just keep it up to date and we're all good. So, in my opinion, what I'm going to say is the challenges that I think we need to look at are that I see in a lot of customers are support personnel. I have a customer right before I came here that said, hey, do you know any VAX Fortran people or VMS Fortran people? Because I need to convert some of this stuff to something else, and I have these models, and I can't find anybody out of school which even knows what Fortran is. So, support personnel or people that support VMS, again, is harder to find, especially with the younger people. I mean, we're all older, we're all a little more expensive and things like that. How to work across technology so support resources don't operate in blind silos. I see that all the time, is that people are making decisions in vacuums based on the things that they work on. So I work in VMS or I work in Windows, and I love when I come across a network guy and I say DECnet and he knows what I'm talking about. And that's very rare these days. How to identify opportunities that leverage current technologies with legacy environments. So there are ways to deal with, for instance, that VAX that's out there that the auditors and people have been complaining about. And I'm going to give a couple examples of what we've seen and we've helped do. And then some tips and tricks. And hopefully this will help you in your short and long-term plans. All right, the first item, finding support people. I think I've seen that in-house full-time employees are hard to find. They're hard to train. They're hard to retain. It's unfortunate. We're all VMS lovers, but younger kids don't want to learn VMS. It's like, why do I want to do this? Because it's not making me marketable. So you could go into external resources, like probably a lot of people here, my company, and I know there's some other really good people here at this conference and other people that we know. If you're looking for external resources, I think it's good to you have to look at your geography that you need covered. So, and I could just say from my standpoint, we use partners because I guess I'll get into a little bit of a story, is that I started this company with a partner. And it was funny because he would always say, we need to come up with something that we just make more money. And I'd say, let's come up with something that fulfills a customer need and make the customer happy, and we'll just make money, and that will come. So, then one thing led to another, and probably about 15 years ago, I bought him out. So now I'm the sole owner, but we, still have a small practice. But I've always been of that attitude, and I think to best cover a customer need, we work with people that can cover the East Coast, the West Coast, the Central, up in Canada, or even internationally. We have some partners, and I'm happy to use those. If there's other people that can fill the customer need better than me, I've always thought that if I actually am honest with the customer and say, yeah, no, I'm going to recommend these people instead of me, that they'll come back to me first every time they need something. I mean, that's my own thought. I don't know if that works, but it's done well for me for us for 30 years. And also to have a consortium of partners. So you can give the best service in the widest range of products and minimize risks. I think over the years, we've developed some really good partnerships with some really good consulting firms, software vendors, solution vendors, things like that. So consequently, these support resources, as well as having geography traits, you want them to have multi-vendor expertise. So when they're looking at your business environment or they're helping you, whoever it is, they know lots of different things. If your environment contains a lot of these, it's good if somebody knows a little bit about all these things. That's somebody calling saying, tell him to wrap it up. So support resources, I think they're best customized to an environment. And I think there's a lot of options that companies have. And I usually break it down into independents, which are going to be your cheapest option. You find a guy that works alone as a sole resource. Those guys you could find, they're going to be cheaper than everybody else. They're going to be potentially very good at the specific thing they do. But they're only going to know what they're going to know. When they're sick or they're on vacation, they're not around. And that's what you deal with. So there's a plus and minus. You go with the big firm, the Accentures of the world and things like that. They have a lot of advantages too. When you're rolling something out and you need to do it at 100 sites in the same week, I can't do that. I would say you need to call somebody big. They're the least personal service. You will be a number in their spreadsheet, and you're going to get who you get. You're going to get one or two really good guys, and the rest of the guys right out of college that they're saying go out and do this. Or a small business where you combine some of the advantages of the above, minimize the disadvantages. That's the market I play in. And there's other firms like me, not just, I don't want this to be a commercial for me. Well, yes, I do, but I don't. And there's other companies, like me as well. Eliminating some of these silos, well, it's sometimes really hard for people in a company to maintain multi-technology disciplines. So how many people in the company are familiar with VMS and Unix and Windows and VMware and something else? I mean, often you're going to a lot of different people, and companies also have businesses to run. If I could go to a manufacturing plant or a hospital and they say, well, I know how to take care of patients. They don't know the technology stuff that we know, but on the other hand, I don't know how to take care of those patients. So, or my guys don't. So again, you bring in the people that you're using for a certain thing. And sometimes when you go externally, you can cherry pick. I need a guy that does this and with these technologies, and find that guy. You could hire and retain appropriate talent. Provide where you're providing the business expertise for your business, and you partner with external resources for the best or for the rest. I think it helps to go out and have exposure to hundreds of companies, hundreds of environments over time where we could say, well, these people do this way, and these people do this way. Because when you're busy in your own company doing things a certain way, you don't see that. So even just to get somebody's opinion on something is helpful.
Things we see got a lot of competition inside the company resources. So it's not just what they know.
Yeah.
Competing with each other for floor space and budget dollars and all those other
And it's how much those other areas care. Just another one of my customers recently, we were setting up some virtualized systems, VMS on VMware, and the VMware guys were trying to run something and something wasn't working right. And the operations people were trying to get the VMware people, and the VMware people were, oh, I'm not sure about this. We got a company that manages this for us. And ultimately, the operations people came to us as the VMS guys and said, do you have someone like this? I said, yeah, I have a VMware guy I could send in here. So sent in a VMware guy and he fixed their problem. And they're like, oh, that guy was great. He was on the phone with this other company that did VMware. And, I'm not saying that he would have fixed it every time, but, you open yourself to the resources that will do the job you need. Okay, as an example, for some of these integrating different technologies, migrating to another operating system, OpenVMS to Unix. I know the VSI people probably don't want to hear this, but or people that are moving away from it for certain systems onto something else. You need experts in the operating system, people that are familiar with those characteristics of the operating system. You want experts on the new operating system if you're going to, really ensure a successful migration. You need to understand how to move data files back and forth. Backup strategies, all those are going to change. Audit reviews are going to change. Reportings, features of the different operating systems are going to change. It's helpful if you have one person saying, okay, well, you're doing this here. You're going to need to do this here. And those people are there. If you can't find them internally, they are available. And external vendors can help and can aid the transition. So the ideal vendor helps before, during, and after, so they kind of know the whole, you get somebody that knows the whole thing. I've been in situations where I've lost deals to an application vendor. So you get someone like, we'll take someone enormous like Epic Healthcare, or somebody like that. And we'd say, we want to come in and help manage your environment. We think you need this help and so forth. Oh no, we're going to get the application vendor to come in. And I tell them all the time, it's like, your application vendor is an expert at the application. They run on the system, but I bet you they don't know the system that well. And in almost every case over 30 years, it's been about a year or two before my phone rings again. And they say, yeah, we'd like you to come in. So, I know there's a big plus where the application vendor could really be the 500-pound gorilla and say, I'm going to do this, but they really know the application. So just be wary of that. SAP might be one of them. Before I get into that, knowing the old technologies too, it was funny. I just had a call with a potential customer that said, we have this old system and it's an old Alpha system. And he goes, we just got off of it. We migrated everything off of it we need onto Windows, but we need to keep this data. So we'd like to know what it would take to come in and move off this data that we need to keep onto something else. And I said, well, we'll have to come in and take a look at it. What can you tell me about it? Well, it's just data there. And we, on VMS, and we need to get it off. They said, I can't give you any idea of a price without knowing more about your environment. And so I told them, I said, maybe somebody will come in 3-4 days, do an audit your system. 3-4 days. It's like, this is just a simple system. That should be half a day. Now, these guys weren't IT people, and they're like, half a day. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to send you a whole bunch of questions, and you answer them as best you can about your current system and your current data. And which, by the way, they were never able to do, but I was able to determine that their old application was written in Dieball, and all the data was in Powerhouse, accessible through Powerhouse. at least, and so they have a quiz report writer. If you're looking for the people that know Powerhouse in this room, but this is not easy to find stuff. I think one partner that can do their job for them. Yeah, it was really kind of funny. I said, all right, well, if you want to do this, I bet we can use Quiz, which is their report writer, the Powerhouse report writer, to get that data out. But I would like you to tell me how much data you have, how many records do you have, what are the field lengths, and all this other stuff. Nothing. So, and at a certain point, I told them, because they were combative a little bit, I said, you might consider going and hiring an intern to learn this stuff. If you don't really want to pay that much, just hire an intern and set them to learn this stuff and do it. That's probably going to be way cheaper than if you hire me to do this. And, yet to be seen. Call me in a few months and ask me what happened, if you care. Okay, so example number 2, securing your old VAX to satisfy auditors. We run across this all the time. People a lot of times are still satisfied with their VAXs that still have them. But the big push against the VAXs are not so much that they don't work and they don't provide what you need, it's they're not secure if you just leave them like they are. So there are a lot of ways to address the limitations of that. So OpenVMS has a lot of nice features of auditing, reporting, things like that. But TCP/IP is the big thing. People that have been around a long time have all been to these, and Steve Hoffman will stand up on the pedestal and shout about how terrible TCP/IP is. But you can still get an updated IP stack. Process Software sells one for VAX, and they still support it. We have put VAXs behind a Citrix workspace for isolated a system behind a firewall, and where you have to use a jump server to get into it. So you could use modern day authentication techniques to get into a jump server, which is maybe a Windows machine or things like that people need to use as a landing zone to then get to VMS. That will often satisfy an auditor. Or you can emulate the VAX, and that gives, at least you could use things like encrypted storage at rest. You could maybe turn off, I've seen people turn off networking and allow virtual serial connections, which could then be done over SSH. And I've even seen people that keep things turned off and turn it on when needed, which at least, in the emulation world is really simple to do. Whereas in the physical hardware world, I have gotten more than one call in my life of, oh, we kept the system around in case we need it, and once we powered it on, it wouldn't boot. So sounds like you've heard that once or twice yourself. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
A lot of the stuff we do is data center migration.
Yeah.
And legacy sites into an enterprise data center.
Yeah.
Federal government has these rules about must have a support contract for any hardware to live in this facility. So that's kind of forcing some of this kind of
right.
Exactly the percent.
Right. And especially like our hardware support, that's a lot harder than it used to be. I mean, there's all these companies that'll take care of hardware support, but you guys could tell me your experience in this room, but hardware vendors used to come in. Well, it could be expensive, but they used to come in and they used to at least know what they were doing. Now it's like, the guy comes in and it's like, all he knows about a VAX or an alpha is how to swap a card. If it's something else, it's like, all right, well, can you're going to boot this up after you're done, or I don't know how to do that.
It gets worse because, HP and all the other big vendors have outsourced their field service organizations to subs.
Yep.
In turn, sub to others.
Yeah.
So these guys show up.
Yeah. We just did a 3-par SAN install at a place, and the customer hired HPE to come in and do the install for newer storage than their EVA. That was their whole idea. At least we're going to move forward to past an EVA for 3-par, still not the latest, but, and the guy that came in was just like, he's looking stuff up in his manual as he's installing it. It's like, you don't really know this technology, do you? Right, right. Right. Right, right. And if they can't do it with just a swap, you're in trouble. Right. So these are all great questions, and these are all the things that hopefully at the birds of a feather session for, strategic direction, this is kind of what I hope to get from the group. So you guys would all be awesome in it. Okay, leveraging newer technologies. A lot of things we hear are the people that knew this system are long gone. And from as old as at well, it was Cleveland Cliffs at the time, but a steel company, they were using PDP-11s to, I think they're all gone now, because the guy that custom wired the board on the PDP retired. So, yeah, people that knew the system are long gone. I see that all the time. I've seen it where I've asked somebody where a computer was, where their system was, and somebody pointed to this and said, "This is our computer," and it's that trip light on the front. And it's like, that's not your computer. That's a power, power conditioner. Or our vendor used to take care of that. I've seen that too, where an application vendor has taken care of a customer, and the application vendors moved on. And so, they're asking us stuff like, "Oh, so-and-so usually integrated this printer into the application." And it's like, or we're stuck with this until we get rid of something else. We have, yeah, I mean, it could be tapes, it could be something else. Or it just runs. I mean, a lot of times when things run, it's probably less often defined management that will proactively update their technology. A lot of times if it's just running, it is a disaster waiting to happen. And that's that whole risk curve, which is that next part. Everything has some cost of upkeep. And a choice not to pay that cost only increases your risk curve. But again, there are some options. So if I can't move, a potential solution is emulation. Now, we've been involved in emulation since the beginning of emulation. I think we were one of the guinea pig resellers early on, but it turned into a decent industry, and it works great. Communication protocol restrictions. I have a customer right now that can't do anything with his machines because they run a custom ArcNet card to communicate with things. And, how do you get off of that? And I suggested at one point, it's like, well, I know there's an ArcNet to Ethernet communication gateway. We could, try and put that in and see if that works. But there's a lot of times a really niche product, like a communication gateway, does exist. You just got to find it, or you got to be aware of it or look for it. But, a little creativity, there's ways around stuff. Or I have to move, and that's usually a, security thing. I need to get off of this because the auditors won't allow this, or I can't connect to it anymore because they updated my SSH protocols, and I can't get onto a machine using SSH anymore because VMS doesn't allow me to connect with older protocols, or VMS needs the older protocols. The newer terminal emulation programs you use to get to it doesn't support those. But a lot of times we've gotten around it by offering to log sessions when people get in, or to again, jump hosts is another thing, or integrating third-party products. Like VMS might not have password complexity in the older versions, like on VAX, but there's Parsec sells a password policy manager, which actually supplies, so many uppercase, so many lowercase, minimum lengths, randomizers, things like that will enforce it. Session recording, there's System Detective, I think, is still out there, which will record sessions. Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's a super powerful product. Right.
Seats, like,
Right. Right. Yeah. And if you want to go the cheap route, you do we've set this up at some places where they've said, oh, well, we're not going to pay for that. So you do a dual login where you have a set host / log as your first login, which then lets you log into a second account. And you just put some DCL code around it to say, this is all this first session can do is log into it again and start a log, protect your logs, put ACLs on those logs to see who gets to them. You know, there's a lot of little pieces to do, but it's not that hard to set up. And then the obvious move is to, if you can, migrate forward to newer supported platforms like VSI. I mean, which, you know, we're all here, so we're all at least a little hopeful of doing things like that. Because then you call VSI and you say, hey, you know, this is a security thing, and they'll work on it because it is a current product. Tips and tricks. So at least know that there are options and you can have a plan for that. You want people with the skills of technical options and related costs, people that know how to migrate if you need to, and maybe that have done it with issues, good project management. I guess that whole first part, the desired skills, is say, get a vendor that can help you. You know, if it's someone like us, if it's someone like VSI, if it's someone like, you know, Software Concepts, if it's, you know, have a relationship with someone that knows your name, that will take your call. You know, we have a hardware store kind of that was close to our house that I loved. I think used to be True Value, and they've since closed, which kills me because now I'm stuck with Menards or Home Depot. But I'd walk into this True Value hardware store, and it was Al's Hardware, and Al was there, and you just walk in, and he'd know who you were. And you know, the first time I went in there, it's like, yeah, I'm buying a gas grill for my house. He's like, okay, this is what you need, and so on and so forth. And he's like, you got a way to take it home? No, I don't. I'll put it in my pickup truck. I'll be at your house in 10 minutes. You know, those vendors are great. We want to do the IT equivalent of that. They at least have relationships with some people like that because they will take care of you. And make sure that vendor is willing to say, I'm not the guy that will do this for you. That will be those people. Those are the best ones. And possible moves are moving older systems, newer platforms. Emulation is one of the things that we use very successfully, reduces hardware risk, often gives a potential performance enhancement. I just got a new PC in my own office because my motherboard died, which was a whole painful process. But I got this, you know, giant AMD Ryzen chip in it, and I ran some performance numbers on it, and it reported CPU numbers better than an ES47, the 1.25 gigahertz. So, and that was hard to do on an alpha for a long time. On VAX, you could, you know, blow past that stuff. You could get novel new features with emulation. You could do kind of cool things with backups or where you put the console and things like that. And low cost, low risk options. And it's really a quick result. If you can move to emulation, it's a quick result. But then you're still stuck with the old platform. If you can move ahead, if you have all your source code, you know, you want to weigh that against moving forward to something like, you know, VSI's. That's a migration or a software conversion because now you recompile everything and so forth, where you don't do that with moving to emulation. Keep the IP stack updated. That's probably one of the biggest things you can do to keep your things current. As I said before, fence your system behind current technology, whether it's a jump server, whether it's something else. If you can migrate to a newer platform, that will generally help you. You know, I don't want to just read through the slides so you guys can read. I always hate people that just read their presentations, I guess. But anyway, yeah, there's easier ways and harder ways. The closer you stick with what you have, the easier it is. The more you change, the more expensive it gets. That's the summary of that. Most of them, yeah, most of. it's usually the guys that they've gone.
They left the code in their own directory.
Or they just don't know it. A lot of times they don't know it.
It's there, they just don't know where.
Yeah, sometimes you could find it, but it's like, I don't know how to do it, or even more so, there were developers that had 10 directories of things and they said, well, this is the one I know that is the one we're using in production. And they have their own little things when they compile it and they take out their notebook and this is how to compile. And, it's hard to reproduce. Which one is it when that guy leaves? It's not always right. Right. And if we have some time, I just figured it might be fun. I put together one of the last times I hear this is probably a little more technical. If you guys aren't as interested, I get it. And I want to talk more. The Birds of a Feather session tonight, I guess, is more of everyone talking about what they do to make their environments better, because I think we could all learn things from each other. This is a demo I put together on emulating in the Azure cloud. I did it last time we had a boot camp. I put together something moving to AWS. I said, oh, I did AWS last time, so let's do Azure this time. And I made it a little quicker. So there are parts that you'll see that I don't know if you could hear. Some goofy guy talking. I don't sound like that, do I? So it's like when you hear yourself on the phone and it's like, yeah, that's not me or a recording. Let's see. Yeah, hold on. Here's something. A little. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's I could talk over it too while we're doing it. So that's the Microsoft Azure dashboard. Yeah, I use the Gore Technologies VT server. And that's what I basically said on Azure. I could actually build a VT server image up on AWS directly. Azure, you have to have a Hyper-V image that you move up. So I just installed a straight Hyper-V VT server base disk that then I had to create a machine for to upload. But this is the process if you decide to move anything up to the Azure cloud and want to run some stuff there. This is going to be an alpha emulation. Max would be identical. It's purple, the emblem. half the price. Because it's looking at the BT server and not. That's Azure. That wasn't my decision. That's what Azure gives you when you create the virtual machine. It gives you a public IP. So that's all I use there. This does take about a minute to up or out. And vice versa. I really knew desktop and didn't have, just to be critical of myself. So those with experience with VT server will recognize this as the management interface. You'd say you should never run into a problem, especially if you record it in advance. But I have a problem because I put the wrong IP address for the license server. So what you'll find, I was smart enough to pause the recording until I found what the problem was and fixed it. I'll say that for an authentic demo. So this is the Azure server looking down to my Office PC for the license key. This is where I stopped. When I typed in when I looked up the right address, I typed the third octet wrong. That's what happened. So pause, up, we started. Do the magic of recording. Pardon? Yeah, yeah. Or if I had an extra week, I would have tightened up the video.
Had a soft license instead of the license key. Fine.
It would find it, yes. Oh, it's starting. So that is up in Azure. I was right on top of it 9 days ago. All the expired licenses will flew by. No password for system. Don't do this at home. Actually, once it started, it was ridiculously snappy. Right. And that was that. So, outside of that, I think, I was hoping it'd be done by 10-2, but we're close. Like again, the strategic directions tonight, if this kind of thing is of interest to you, come by that later on and we'll all share information with each other about, how we deal with environments and, hopefully we walk away with that with some real tips as opposed to just having to listen to me talk about them.
You needed to know BMS, you needed to know PC, host environment, you needed the hardware, you needed to know the emulator, and you needed to know an Azure. It wasn't that.
Hold on a second.
It was
Stop that. Sorry. I shouldn't have hit something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just talking about the different. So you have the legacy BMS.
Yeah,
Knowledge.
Yeah,
You have the modern post-hardware knowledge. You have the emulator, the VT monitor application knowledge, and then you have the Azure knowledge. And you put all that together in that demo.
yeah. We've done a lot. The things we see mostly now is we see mostly environments that are Windows, Linux, VMS. I mean, really, we've done plenty of customers that are, Solaris or an HPUX and AIX and things like that, but we're seeing less of those and more of the Linux. And, certainly Windows is out there. VMware is huge, although Proxmox is, I'm hearing that more and more and more.
That's really of interest because one of the things,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But in the recent Broadcom acquisition,
Mhm.
prices have gone up anywhere between 500 times, TV.
Yeah.
And people are really freaking out about being there.
Yeah.
So having options.
Yeah.
Is absolutely KVM is,
Right. And I don't know Proxmox. Yeah. I don't know Proxmox that well yet, but as I understand, it will take a VMware image and just run it. So you don't even have to change anything. It will run a VMware image. Yeah. I haven't tried it yet myself, but I've just heard this. So, and I heard it from a source that I trust. So, all right. Any last minute questions? I would say outside of that, if you like this, consider birds of a feather. If you can make it tomorrow after the VSI dinner, I do have 80 of these shirts that I'm trying to give out with this cool thing. I figured I could explain it if you guys care. The Vax, if anyone recognizes that car, it's an old LaSalle. Any all in the family fans here? That at the very end of our old LaSalle ran great. Well, that's what that is. Of course, the Alpha was a hot little car, so it's the Cobra. The IA-64 is a Chevy SSR, kind of a cool concept, but something that maybe never should have gotten made. And the X86 is a EV Bentley, I believe, just something modern is what I picked. So anyway, and I know you have to wear this. You could get paint on the front, but the cool back is kind of cool. And I have a box of these in my room. And I was hoping I'm going to bring them to the suite tomorrow night that we're going to invite people to, that anyone that wants to come up, although we have to figure out how to get people there because, you need cards in the elevators. So we need to figure that out. So ask Linda or myself. I don't think the room cards will go to anywhere but the floor your room is on. I don't know. I'll know tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah.
The top floor is 7.
And if you can't go and you still want a shirt, I am still happy to get rid of one. As a matter of fact, is there an extra large here? I wear an extra large. I'll give this one away right now. I have some of those too. Yeah, I have some of those too. Anyone an extra large? There you go. All right. Any other questions? No one shot at me this time, so that's good.
The previous